3 months earlier, the message had arrived through every communication device on Earth simultaneously. Not through satellites, not through cables, through every piece of technology that could display text or sound. Your microwave, your smart toaster, even those old Nokia phones somehow lit up with the same chilling announcement. Attention primitive species 7, Sol 3. Your planet has been selected for resource extraction and labor conscription. Submit your surrender terms within 72 standard cycles. The President of the United States had been in the middle of a press conference about infrastructure spending when his teleprompter started displaying alien legalese. The poor guy stood there for a solid 30 seconds, mouth opening and closing like a goldfish, before someone finally cut the feed. But here's the thing about humans, and this is what the aliens completely failed to understand: we don't really do surrender very well. Oh sure, we'll surrender in a board game if we're getting crushed, or maybe give up on assembling IKEA furniture after the third nervous breakdown. But surrender our entire planet? To creatures we've never even met? That was going to be a hard pass. The United Nations Emergency Assembly convened within 6 hours. For the first time in human history, every single nation agreed on something. These aliens could kiss our collective ass. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's newly appointed Director of Xenological Defense, a position that literally didn't exist until that Tuesday, stood before the assembly with a grim smile. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 71 days to figure out how to tell 7 advanced alien civilizations to go screw themselves. Any bright ideas? The room erupted in chaos. Delegates screamed about nukes, about bunkers, about evacuation plans. But in the back, a thin man in a rumpled suit raised his hand quietly. Dr. Marcus Webb, a theoretical physicist who'd spent 20 years being laughed at for his ridiculous theories about quantum manipulation. Actually, he said, voice barely carrying over the din, I might have something. What Dr. Webb had was a theory. What he called quantum probability anchoring. Basically, the idea that consciousness could influence quantum mechanics on a macro scale if you had enough minds focused on the same outcome. Sound crazy? That's what everyone thought. Until the aliens arrived. 7 massive fleets materialized in Earth's orbit on day 73, exactly 1 day after the deadline. Each fleet represented a different species, each convinced they had the strongest claim to Earth's resources and population. The Zorathians wanted our water and planned to keep humans as aquatic farm workers. The Vex Collective needed our rare earth minerals and saw humans as perfect mining slaves. The hegemony of Krell viewed Earth as a strategic military outpost and humans as cannon fodder. 4 other species had their own delightful plans for humanity's future, none of which involved humans having much of a say in the matter. But here's where it gets interesting. See, these 7 species hadn't exactly coordinated their invasion. They'd all received the same galactic survey report about Earth's resources, all filed their colonization claims with the Galactic Commerce Authority, and all showed up to collect their prize. Problem was, there was only one Earth to go around. Admiral Zexhai of the Zorathian fleet opened communications with the other armadas, his voice dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for explaining smartphones to grandparents. Fellow collectors. His translation came through as a wet, bubbling sound that made everyone who heard it slightly nauseous. There seems to be some confusion. The Waterworld Sol 3 belongs to the Zorathian Empire by right of first claim. First claim? The mechanical voice of Overmind Unit 7 from the Vex Collective crackled with static. Our mining surveys were filed 3 rotations before yours, organic waste. The insults that followed would have made a sailor blush. If sailors could understand 16 different alien languages simultaneously threatening extreme violence over mining rights. Down on Earth, Dr. Vasquez watched the alien ships positioning themselves for what looked like the galaxy's most destructive custody battle. Well, she said, turning to Dr. Webb, I really hope your crazy theory works, because we're about to become collateral damage in the worst divorce proceedings in cosmic history. Dr. Webb's plan was insane. Beautifully, desperately insane. Every human consciousness on Earth, he explained to the emergency global broadcast, focused on the same quantum outcome. 7.8 billion minds, all visualizing the same result. What would you do if someone told you that thinking really hard could save the world? The plan was this. At exactly 12 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, every human on Earth would spend 60 seconds visualizing the alien fleets turning on each other instead of attacking Earth. Not just imagining it, truly believing it would happen, focusing every ounce of mental energy on that single outcome. It sounded like the kind of New Age nonsense you'd find on a crystal healing website. But when you're facing extinction, you try everything. The global meditation began at exactly noon. In Times Square, millions of people held hands and closed their eyes. In Tokyo, Buddhist monks led corporate executives in focused visualization. In Sao Paulo, an entire soccer stadium fell silent, 200,000 fans concentrating on the same impossible dream. For 60 seconds, the entire human species shared a single thought. Turn on each other. Fight among yourselves. Leave us alone. In orbit, Admiral HFY was in the middle of demanding the Krell hegemony stand down when his ship's quantum sensors started screaming warnings. Reality itself seemed to be shifting. What is this? He gurgled, tentacles writhing in confusion. The probability matrices are destabilizing. Down on Earth, Dr. Webb watched his instruments with growing amazement. It's working, he whispered. Holy shit, it's actually working. The first accident happened when a Vex collective mining probe drifted too close to a Zorathian water extraction ship. A minor navigation error that somehow triggered defensive systems on both vessels. The second accident involved a Krell battle cruiser's weapons array mysteriously activating while pointed directly at a hegemony supply transport. By the third accident, it wasn't accidents anymore. It was war. 7 different species, each convinced the others were deliberately sabotaging their legitimate claim to Earth, turned their weapons away from the planet below and toward each other. The battle for Earth's orbit lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 7 proud alien fleets were reduced to scattered debris and a handful of badly damaged vessels limping away into deep space. But the real victory came 3 days later. The surviving alien commanders, their fleets destroyed and their pride shattered, found themselves in the unusual position of being stranded in Earth's solar system with limited supplies and no backup. Dr. Vasquez, now effectively Earth's first diplomatic contact with alien species, received a series of desperate communications. The mighty conquerors were asking for help. This is unprecedented, Admiral HFY admitted, his translator struggling with what might have been embarrassment. We require assistance with repairs and supplies to return to our home systems. The Krell hegemony's war commander Thex was more direct. You will provide aid or we will detonate our remaining vessels and irradiate your star system. Dr. Vasquez smiled, the kind of smile that would make a loan shark nervous. Oh, you want our help? That's interesting. See, we just had a vote and humanity has decided to join the galactic community. As equals. The silence from the alien vessels was deafening. Equals? Overmind Unit 7's voice crackled. You are a pre-contact species. You have no rights under galactic law. We did some research, Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice carrying to every alien vessel simultaneously through a communication array humanity definitely shouldn't have been able to build in 3 days. Turns out there's a little clause in galactic law about species that can defend themselves against multiple established civilizations simultaneously. Something about demonstrated tactical superiority granting immediate citizenship status. Ever had someone use your own rules against you? It stings, doesn't it? She let that sink in for a moment before continuing. Here's how this is going to work. We'll provide humanitarian aid, food, medical supplies, repair materials. In exchange, you're going to do 3 things. The aliens waited, probably wondering how their simple resource extraction mission had turned into a hostage negotiation. First, you're going to formally recognize Earth as a sovereign system under galactic law. Second, you're going to provide us with the technological specifications we need to build proper defensive systems. We can't have random fleets showing up uninvited anymore. And third, Dr. Vasquez paused, savoring the moment. You're going to explain to the Galactic Commerce Authority exactly how a primitive species just handed 7 advanced civilizations their asses without firing a single shot. Admiral HFY's response was immediate. This is extortion. No, Dr. Vasquez replied cheerfully. Extortion would be if we threatened to hurt you unless you paid us. This is just capitalism. You want our goods and services, we set the terms. I thought you'd appreciate that. Isn't that exactly what you were planning to do to us? The Vex Collective's Overmind Unit 7 processed this for several long seconds. The irony has been calculated and found statistically significant. War Commander Thex was less philosophical. You cannot expect us to bow to a species that throws water at each other for entertainment. Hey now, Dr. Vasquez laughed. Water balloon fights are a legitimate cultural tradition. And considering we just made 7 galactic powers destroy each other's fleets using nothing but concentrated thinking, maybe you should respect our primitive traditions a little more. What followed were the most bizarre diplomatic negotiations in human history. 7 different alien species, each with their own cultural quirks and biological needs, trying to bargain with humans they'd underestimated so catastrophically they were now asking for food. The Zorathians needed specialized water recycling systems. The Vex Collective required rare computational materials. The Krell hegemony was running low on the specific protein compounds their warrior caste needed to survive. Humanity, meanwhile, had gone from facing extinction to suddenly being the most powerful negotiating party in the solar system. Dr. Webb, the theoretical physicist whose crazy idea had saved the world, found himself appointed as Earth's first Minister of Quantum Defense. His first official act was to establish research partnerships with each alien species. After all, if human consciousness could influence quantum mechanics on a macro scale, imagine what they could accomplish with alien technology. But the real power play came from an unexpected source. "We want to speak with your leaders," Admiral HFY demanded during one particularly tense negotiation session. Dr. Vasquez smiled. "You are speaking with our leaders." "Impossible. Where is your emperor? Your high command? Your ruling class?" "We don't really do that here," she explained patiently. "See, our leadership is temporary and distributed and chosen by the people who get led." The concept of democracy, it turned out, was completely alien to aliens. Overmind Unit 7's processors nearly overheated trying to understand a system where leadership changed peacefully every few years. This is inefficient. How do you maintain consistent policy across temporal variations in leadership? "We don't," Dr. Vasquez laughed. "That's kind of the point. Keeps things interesting." War Commander Thex was having an existential crisis. "You mean to tell us that your species willingly surrenders power to individuals who may disagree with previous decisions? Wild, right? Asterisk, have you ever tried to explain democracy to someone who's lived under a military dictatorship their entire life? Now imagine that someone has tentacles and breathes methane. Asterisk, 3 weeks into the negotiations, Dr. Webb made a discovery that changed everything. "Elena," he burst into the command center, clutching a data pad like his life depended on it. "The quantum probability anchoring, it's not a one-time thing. We've been unconsciously influencing local space-time since we became aware of it." Dr. Vasquez looked up from a particularly frustrating discussion with the hegemony about protein synthesis requirements. "What are you saying, Marcus?" "I'm saying we accidentally became the most powerful species in the local galactic cluster, and we did it by thinking really hard about not dying." The implications were staggering. Human consciousness, when focused collectively, could literally reshape reality on a quantum level. Every major decision, every global moment of unity or crisis, had been subtly influencing the physical universe around Earth. "The moon landing," Dr. Webb explained, his eyes wide with realization. "The entire world was watching, believing it would succeed. We didn't just make it to the moon, we made it inevitable." Dr. Vasquez sat down hard. "Are you telling me that human achievement is literally powered by human belief?" "I'm telling you that we've been accidentally practicing magic and calling it determination." Up in orbit, the alien commanders were having their own crisis of understanding. Their sensors had detected the quantum fluctuations around Earth, and their scientists were frantically trying to comprehend what they were seeing. "The humans," Admiral HFY reported to his science officer, "appear to be generating localized alterations in the fundamental structure of reality through synchronized neural activity." His science officer's translation came out as something that sounded like a dolphin having an anxiety attack. "Sir, I believe the technical term for what they're doing is thinking themselves into gods." "That's impossible. So was their defeat of our combined fleets, sir." The news spread through the galactic community like wildfire. A pre-contact species had somehow developed the ability to manipulate quantum reality through collective consciousness, and they'd used it to humiliate 7 advanced civilizations without firing a shot. The Galactic Commerce Authority's emergency session was a chaos of competing voices, each species trying to understand the implications of humanity's newfound abilities. "They must be contained," insisted the representative of the thermal hierarchies. A species with reality-altering capabilities cannot be allowed to spread throughout the galaxy. Contained? The ambassador from the Crystal Syndicate laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. They just demonstrated that they can make any fleet that approaches them destroy itself. How exactly do you propose we contain beings who can think their enemies into shooting each other? Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity was having its own crisis of identity. The revelation that human consciousness could alter reality had profound implications for everything from religion to physics to the stock market. Dr. Vasquez found herself fielding calls from world leaders, religious figures, and one very confused grocery store manager in Ohio who claimed his produce section had been thinking itself into better organization ever since the global meditation. "So what now?" she asked Dr. Webb during a rare quiet moment. "We've gone from facing extinction to accidentally becoming the most feared species in the galaxy. What's our next move?" Dr. Webb looked out at the alien vessels still orbiting Earth, their commanders trapped in increasingly desperate negotiations for basic survival supplies. "We do what humans have always done," he said quietly. "We surprise everyone." The announcement came during what the media had dubbed the final negotiations. Representatives from all 7 alien species had been brought to Earth, under heavy guard and with limited technology, for face-to-face talks. Dr. Vasquez stood before them in what had been the UN General Assembly, but now looked more like a scene from a science fiction movie. 7 different forms of alien life, each representing a civilization that had traveled across the stars to conquer humanity, now sat in chairs designed for human diplomats and waited to learn their fate. "Here's what's going to happen," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the universal translators. "We're going to help you repair your ships. We're going to provide supplies for your journey home. And we're going to pretend this whole invasion thing never happened." The aliens stirred uneasily. This wasn't the victory celebration or public humiliation they'd expected. "In exchange," Dr. Vasquez continued, "you're each going to do something for us. The Zorathians are going to establish a cultural exchange program. We want to learn about your art, your music, your literature. The Vex Collective is going to share non-military technology that can help us heal our planet's environmental damage." She worked her way through each species, outlining partnerships that would benefit both sides. Trade agreements, research collaborations, cultural exchanges. "You're making us partners?" Admiral HFY asked, his translator struggling with what might have been confusion. "We're making you friends," Dr. Vasquez corrected. "See, that's another thing about humans. We're really good at turning enemies into allies. It's kind of our thing." War Commander Thex leaned forward, his armor scraping against the chair. "And if we refuse these partnerships?" Dr. Vasquez smiled, but this time it was warm instead of threatening. "Then you go home and we never speak again. But I think you'll find that being humanity's friend is a lot more profitable than being humanity's enemy. Asterisk, have you ever been in a fight that ended with everyone becoming best friends? It's more common than you think." Asterisk, 6 months later, the first human-alien cultural festival took place in Geneva. Zorathian water symphonies played alongside human orchestras. Vex Collective computational artists created impossible geometric sculptures in collaboration with human architects. Krell warriors demonstrated their combat techniques while human martial artists showed them Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Dr. Webb, now director of Earth's Department of Quantum Consciousness Studies, watched from the observation deck with a satisfied smile. "You know what the funny thing is?" he said to Dr. Vasquez as they watched a group of human children teaching young thermal hierarchs how to play soccer. "What's that?" The aliens were right. Humans are special. We just weren't special in the way they thought. Dr. Vasquez laughed. "How so?" "They assumed special meant valuable resources to extract. Turns out special means capable of accidentally becoming gods through the power of really wanting something." Down on the festival grounds, Admiral HFY was attempting to eat cotton candy for the first time, while a crowd of human children cheered him on. His tentacles were covered in pink sugar, and he was making sounds that the translator was rendering as delicious confusion. "You think they'll figure out the secret?" Dr. Vasquez asked. Dr. Webb shook his head. "The secret isn't that humans can manipulate quantum reality through collective consciousness. That's just the how. Then what's the secret? The secret is that we never stopped believing we could win, even when winning seemed impossible. Every other species looks at overwhelming odds and calculates their chances of survival. Humans look at overwhelming odds and ask, yeah, but what if we tried anyway? Above them, the first human-designed starship was taking shape in orbital construction, built with alien technology but powered by human dreams. The Unity would be humanity's first venture beyond the solar system, carrying a crew of humans and aliens on a mission of exploration rather than conquest. But that's a story for another day. 3 days after the festival ended, Dr. Webb's quantum sensors detected something that made his blood run cold. A massive fleet was approaching the edge of the solar system. Not 7 ships, not 70. 700 vessels, moving in perfect formation toward Earth. The transmission came through on all frequencies simultaneously, just like the original alien message months ago. But this time the voice was different. Ancient, patient, amused. Greetings, young reality shapers. We are the architects. We built the quantum frameworks you've learned to manipulate. And we've been waiting a very long time for a species to discover what you've discovered. Dr. Webb stared at the readings, his hands shaking. Elena, he whispered into his communicator, we've got a problem. A big one. How big? Remember how we thought we were special because we could think our way out of impossible situations? Yeah. Well, we're about to meet the people who taught the universe how to think. The transmission continued, and every human on Earth could hear the smile in the ancient voice. Don't worry. We're not here to conquer you. We're here to teach you. After all, gods need proper training, don't they? Dr. Webb looked up at the stars, where 700 impossibly advanced ships were decelerating toward Earth orbit, and realized that humanity's adventure was just beginning. What would you do if the beings who created the laws of physics showed up at your door and said, "We need to talk"? The architect fleet hung in space like a constellation of nightmares made manifest. Each vessel was less a ship and more a geometric impossibility, structures that existed in dimensions human eyes couldn't quite process, casting shadows that fell upward and emanating light that somehow felt ancient. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in Earth's new Quantum Defense Command Center, watching readings that made no sense. The alien ships weren't just advanced, they were rewriting the fundamental rules of space-time around them just by existing. How old are we talking here, Marcus? She asked Dr. Webb, who was hunched over instruments that were smoking from sheer computational overload. Based on the quantum signatures? Dr. Webb looked up, his face pale. Elena, these aren't just old civilizations. They're old as in they were here when the universe was learning how to have physics old. 3 days had passed since the architect's initial message. 3 days of every world leader losing sleep, every scientist questioning everything they thought they knew, and every human on Earth dealing with the strange sensation that something vast and incomprehensible was watching them. The architects had been patient, polite even. They'd positioned their fleet in a perfect sphere around Earth's solar system and simply waited. No demands, no threats, no invasion schedule. Just that one message: we need to teach you. Gods need proper training, don't they? What do you do when beings who invented the concept of existence want to have a parent-teacher conference? The answer, apparently, was panic quietly while trying to look competent. Admiral Zexhai, who had stayed on Earth as part of the new human-Zorathian cultural exchange, provided what little intelligence he could about the architects. My species has myths, he bubbled through his translator, tentacles writhing nervously. Stories of the first builders, the ones who shaped the quantum foam into reality. But they are legends, fairy tales we tell our spawn clusters. Well, Dr. Vasquez said grimly, your fairy tales just requested a meeting. The meeting was set for neutral ground, the newly constructed International Space Station Unity, orbiting Earth in the same path as the old ISS but about 10,000 times larger and infinitely more impossible. The station had been built in 3 days. Not with alien technology. Not with some miraculous breakthrough. The entire human population had simply focused their collective consciousness on the idea that humanity needed a proper meeting place for cosmic diplomacy, and reality had obliged by providing blueprints, materials, and construction techniques that didn't technically exist yet. Dr. Webb called it aggressive wishful thinking made manifest. Dr. Vasquez called it humanity's accidental superpower getting seriously out of hand. The architect representative arrived in what could generously be called a shuttle. If shuttles were geometric theorems that could fly and had a tendency to make nearby space fold itself into origami shapes. The being that emerged was difficult to describe. Imagine if mathematics had decided to become a person, but couldn't quite figure out what person meant. It moved like liquid geometry, spoke in harmonics that bypassed the ears entirely and rang directly in the mind, and cast a shadow that showed not what it looked like, but what it meant. "I am Axiom," it said without speaking, its presence filling the station's main conference room like the concept of inevitability given form. "I speak for the collective of first principles." Dr. Vasquez, representing humanity in what was arguably the most important diplomatic meeting in the history of existence, took a deep breath and did what humans do best when faced with the impossible. She improvised. "Welcome to the Unity," she said, gesturing to chairs that definitely hadn't been there 5 minutes ago but which reality insisted had always existed. "I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez and this is Dr. Marcus Webb. We represent the people of Earth." Axiom shifted, its form settling into something almost recognizable as humanoid. "Your species continues to surprise us," it said, and there might have been amusement in the harmonics. "You have built a structure that exists in 17 dimensions using materials that were theoretical until you needed them to be real." "Yeah, we're still figuring out how that works," Dr. Webb admitted. "Honestly, we're kind of winging this whole reality manipulation thing." The silence that followed was profound. Not just quiet, the kind of silence that happens when a being older than galaxies processes something that doesn't compute. "You don't know how you do it?" Axiom said finally. "Not really, no." Another pause. Longer this time. "This is unprecedented." What followed was the strangest classroom session in cosmic history. Axiom began explaining the fundamental principles of quantum consciousness manipulation, the science behind what humans had been accidentally doing for months. "Reality," Axiom intoned, "is constructed from consensus. What you call physics are simply agreed upon rules that conscious beings accept as truth. The architects learned to modify these rules through eons of study, meditation, and careful manipulation of quantum probability matrices." Dr. Webb furiously took notes on a tablet that kept upgrading itself every time he thought it wasn't advanced enough for the conversation. "Most species require millennia of training before they can alter even the simplest physical laws," Axiom continued. "The process involves deep understanding of quantum mechanics, collective consciousness discipline, and precise mathematical formulations that—" "Wait," Dr. Vasquez interrupted. "You're saying that what we did, the thing with the alien fleets, that should have taken us thousands of years to learn? Tens of thousands. Minimum." Dr. Webb looked up from his self-improving tablet. "But we just wanted it to happen. Really, really wanted it." Axiom's form rippled in what might have been confusion. "Elaborate." "Well, 7 billion people all wanted the same thing at the same time. We focused really hard on the aliens fighting each other instead of attacking us. And it worked. You achieved Class 7 quantum manipulation through wishful thinking?" "Aggressive wishful thinking," Dr. Webb corrected. "There's a difference." The mathematical being that was older than most star systems struggled with this concept for several long moments. "Show me," it finally said. Dr. Vasquez looked at Dr. Webb, who shrugged in the universal gesture of, "Why not?" "Okay," she said, activating the station's communication array. "Earth, this is Unity Station. We need a small demonstration of our reality manipulation abilities for our guest. Nothing big, let's just, I don't know, make Mars a little more blue for about 30 seconds. Down on Earth, the message went out through every available channel. Social media, emergency broadcasts, street performers with megaphones. The request was simple. Everyone look at Mars and imagine it being blue instead of red. Just for half a minute. 7.8 billion humans turned their attention to the fourth planet and collectively decided it should be a different color. Mars turned blue. Not metaphorically. Not gradually. One moment it was the familiar red planet, and the next moment it was blue enough to make Neptune jealous. The change was visible from Earth with the naked eye, showed up on every telescope and satellite image, and even registered on the architect sensors as a fundamental alteration in the planetary composition at the quantum level. 30 seconds later, Mars went back to red because that's what it was supposed to be. Axiom stared at the readings for a full minute without moving or speaking. That, it said finally, should have required the focused attention of at least 50 architect collective minds working in perfect harmony for several rotations. How many minds did we use? Dr. Webb asked. All of them. You used all of your minds? Yeah, that's usually how we do group projects. Another silence. This one felt different, less confusion, more something that might have been awe. Your species, Axiom said slowly, treats reality manipulation like a community activity. Is that bad? It's impossible. Consciousness-directed quantum alteration requires perfect mental discipline, years of training, and absolute focus. It cannot be performed casually by untrained individuals acting collectively. Dr. Vasquez grinned. You haven't met humans, have you? Ever tried to explain to someone why humans are weird? It's harder than you think. Over the next several hours, Axiom attempted to teach humanity the proper way to manipulate reality. Complex mathematical formulas, meditation techniques that took centuries to master, precise mental disciplines that required perfect emotional control. The humans listened politely, took notes, and then completely ignored everything they'd been taught. Dr. Vasquez, Axiom said with what sounded suspiciously like frustration, you cannot simply believe really hard that gravity should work differently in this room. The mathematics require— Hey Marcus, Dr. Vasquez called out, do you think we could make the gravity in here about half strength? Just to test something? Sure, why not? They both concentrated for about 5 seconds. Gravity in the conference room reduced to half Earth normal. Axiom floated gently upward, its geometric form rippling with what could only be described as cosmic indignation. This violates every principle of quantum consciousness theory. Does it work though? Dr. Webb asked, doing a little bounce off the ceiling. That's not the point. I mean, it kind of is though. The breakthrough came when Dr. Webb asked the question that changed everything. Axiom, when your people manipulate reality, do you enjoy it? Enjoy? The concept seemed to puzzle the ancient being. It is a precise scientific discipline. Enjoyment is irrelevant. But do you have fun with it? Fun is not a factor in quantum manipulation. Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Webb exchanged glances. That's your problem right there, Dr. Vasquez said gently. You're treating reality like it's some kind of rigid system that has to be carefully negotiated with. We treat it like it's a game we're all playing together. Reality is not a game. Says who? Dr. Webb grinned. I mean, who made that rule? You guys. The silence that followed was the sound of a being older than galaxies having an existential crisis. Let me get this straight, Dr. Vasquez said, fighting to keep a straight face. Your entire civilization spent millions of years developing careful, precise, mathematical methods for manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. Correct. And we just wing it? You wing it. And our winging it works better than your millions of years of careful study? Axiom's form rippled in what was definitely agitation. Your methods are chaotic, unpredictable, and completely lacking in theoretical foundation. But they work. But they work, Axiom admitted with what sounded like cosmic resignation. Dr. Webb couldn't help himself. Must be really embarrassing to have your PhD in universal physics shown up by a species that just figured out space travel. We do not experience embarrassment. You sure about that? Because you sound pretty embarrassed. I am a mathematical construct representing the collective will of beings who shaped reality from primordial chaos. I do not have emotions. Wow. And how's that working out for you right now? The pause that followed was definitely embarrassment. 3 days into what was supposed to be humanity's training, Axiom made an announcement that changed everything. We need to call the collective. The collective? Dr. Vasquez asked. The other architects. All of them. What you are doing here, it challenges fundamental assumptions about the nature of consciousness and reality that have stood for eons. Within hours, the 700 ships of the architect fleet had been joined by thousands more. Not just architects, representatives from every advanced civilization in the galactic cluster. The Zorathians sent their greatest philosophers. The Vex Collective dispatched their most sophisticated analysis units. Even species that had never left their home systems sent observers. They all came to watch humans casually violate everything they thought they knew about physics. The assembled beings, creatures so advanced they made the original 7 invading species look like children with finger paints, watched in stunned silence as Dr. Webb demonstrated humanity's latest party trick, making a small star appear in the conference room, complete with planets and a working ecosystem. It's just temporary, he explained to the audience of cosmic academics. Elena and I thought it would be nice to have some proper lighting for the presentation. The star system was beautiful, accurate in every detail, and absolutely impossible. How? Asked a representative of the Crystal Syndicate, its voice like the sound of galaxies thinking. Are you doing this? Well, Dr. Vasquez said, Marcus really wanted to show off. I thought it would look cool, and we both kind of agreed that reality should be more interesting than usual today. Have you ever watched a room full of professors realize that everything they've spent their careers studying is wrong? The revelation came from an unexpected source. A young architect named Theorem, barely 1,000,000 years old and still considered a student by collective standards. What if, Theorem suggested hesitantly, consciousness isn't meant to be disciplined and controlled? What if the precision we've spent eons developing is actually limiting us? The older architects reacted as if Theorem had suggested that mathematics was just a suggestion. But Dr. Webb perked up. Go on. What if reality manipulation works best when consciousness is unrestrained? Playful. What if the joy and spontaneity you demonstrate is actually the natural state of quantum consciousness interaction? Axiom's form went very still. You're suggesting that our entire approach to universal manipulation is backwards? I'm suggesting, Theorem said, growing bolder, that maybe reality likes to play. What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the Great Awakening, though humans just called it. That time we accidentally broke physics and had to fix it with friendship. The assembled civilizations decided to test Theorem's hypothesis. Under human guidance, representatives from dozens of species attempted to manipulate reality using joy and spontaneity rather than mathematical precision. The results were spectacular. A thermal hierarchy delegate, a species known for their rigid adherence to logic, successfully created a small rainbow that sang opera. The being spent 20 minutes staring at its creation in wonder before bursting into what its translator rendered as thermal laughter. A Vex collective analysis unit, after watching humans demonstrate reality manipulation through games, attempted to create something fun. The result was a holographic butterfly that could exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously and told jokes in languages that didn't exist yet. But the real breakthrough came from Axiom itself. The ancient being, after observing humanity's casual approach to impossible feats, attempted something it had never tried in its millions of years of existence. It played. The result was the most beautiful thing any of the assembled beings had ever witnessed. A cascade of liquid light that showed the history of the universe as a love story, complete with comedy and tragedy and a happy ending that hadn't happened yet. When it was over, Axiom sat in stunned silence for several minutes. I felt joy, it said finally. In the creation. In the process. I felt joy. Dr. Vasquez patted the mathematical being gently on what might have been a shoulder. Congratulations. You just discovered why humans are dangerous. We make everything fun, even the impossible stuff. 6 months later, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The rigid hierarchies that had governed galactic civilization for millions of years had begun to loosen as species discovered the power of joy-based reality manipulation. The architects, once distant and unknowable, had established cultural exchange programs with dozens of species. Earth had become the unofficial capital of the Galactic Fun Committee, a hastily formed organization dedicated to teaching the universe how to play. Dr. Vasquez, now bearing the official title of Ambassador for Cosmic Shenanigans, watched from the observation deck of Unity Station as representatives from 100 different species attempted to create art together. The results were chaotic, impossible, and beautiful. You know what the funny thing is? Dr. Webb said, joining her at the viewing port. What's that? We still don't really know how we do it. Dr. Vasquez laughed. Marcus, I don't think that's the point anymore. Below them, a group of young architects were teaching human children how to make mathematics dance, while a squad of Krell warriors learned to express their emotions through interpretive sculpture. Axiom approached them, its form now more relaxed, more playful than before. Dr. Vasquez, it said, the collective has reached a consensus. Oh, what about? We would like to formally request membership in the Galactic Fun Committee. Dr. Vasquez grinned. I think we can arrange that. But fair warning, there's an initiation process. Which involves karaoke night. The pause that followed was the sound of beings older than galaxies contemplating the cosmic significance of off-key singing. We accept, Axiom said solemnly. Everything was perfect. The galaxy was learning to laugh. Reality was more flexible and fun than anyone had imagined. and humanity had accidentally become the teachers instead of the students. Which is, of course, when everything went wrong. The alarm came from Earth's deep space monitoring stations, the same ones that had detected the architect's approach months earlier. But this time the readings were different. Wrong. Dr. Webb burst into the Unity Station command center, his face pale with shock. Elena, we have a problem. How big? Remember how we thought the architects were ancient and powerful? Yeah. They're not the oldest things in the universe. The transmission came through on frequencies that didn't exist, carried on waves that bypassed normal spacetime entirely. The voice that spoke was older than old, deeper than deep, and carried the weight of eons beyond counting. Attention, young reality shapers and their teachers. I am the curator of final principles. I have observed your experiments with interest. Every being on Unity Station, human, architect, and alien alike, felt the presence of something vast beyond comprehension. You have done something unprecedented. You have taught the universe to play. This development requires adjustment. Dr. Vasquez felt her blood turn to ice. Adjustment. Reality was designed with certain parameters, rules, limitations. Your species has shown these to be optional. This cannot be allowed to continue unchecked. Axiom's form rippled with what might have been fear. The curator, it whispered, we thought it was myth, the being that set the original parameters of existence. I am no myth, young architect, and I am coming to restore order to a universe that has forgotten its place. Dr. Webb stared at his instruments as readings came in that made his previous impossible measurements look simple. Elena, whatever this thing is, it makes the architects look like. Like what? Like us. Like children playing with forces they don't understand. The final message came with the weight of absolute authority. Prepare yourselves, teachers and students of chaos. The lesson is over. It is time to remember why reality has rules. Dr. Vasquez looked out at the assembled fleet of beings who had come to learn joy and play, now facing something that viewed their newfound happiness as a threat to the fundamental order of existence. Marcus, she said quietly, I think we're about to find out what happens when the universe's hall monitor shows up to break up our party. What do you do when the being who wrote the laws of physics decides you're having too much fun?